Are you in the market for a 7-seater family vehicle? At the budget end, shall we say, of the market? Well, we've got two contenders in that market for you right here, right now. This is the Honda BRV. Was known as the Mobilio until recently. Honda decided to jazz it up a little bit, give it a little bit more life and a lot more features. So they made it into a little bit more of an SUV type vehicle instead of just a 7-seater minivan, shall I call it. You've got the body cladding, you've got the fog lights, you've got the roof racks, items like that that have upped the game a little bit on the Honda BRV. On my right, you've got another contender, the Suzuki Ertiga. This is the GA version. You do get a GL version as well. Spec increases and goes up a lot on the GL version. So quite a few differences when you go up the GL. But body shape, very similar. Seating arrangements, very similar. And capacities are very, very similar. So if you have a look, both 4-door vehicles. As I said, 7-seaters. So in other words, you get a third row of seats. And if you come round, one of the penalties that you do end up with on a lot of these sort of vehicles is a much smaller boot area on the vehicle. So you've got to allow for smaller boot and a little bit less boot space on the vehicle. If you want to use it as a full 7-seater, you can see a little bit limited on boot space over here. On the Honda BRV, you're going to get a very similar arrangement, and you can see again maybe a little bit more room than the Ertiga, but very, very similar. So good comparison between the two. The BRV has a 1.5 litre engine with VVT, 88 kilowatts, 145 newton meters of torque, against a 1.4 litre in the Ertiga, 70 kilowatts and 135 newton meters of torque over here. So a couple of differences, a lot of similarities between the two vehicles. You can see the seating layouts are very, very similar. Let's take a look inside these vehicles, because that's also what you need to have a look at and what's going to make a very big difference to your life. Moving inside the Suzuki Ertiga, and I have to point out that this is the base version GA model. And very important to take note that obviously being the base version, it is lacking a few luxuries, shall we say. So you don't get a radio sound system with this one, you don't get Bluetooth, and you don't get some controls on the multifunction steering wheel. So you're lacking a little bit over there. But what you do get is the accommodation. You get the space, you get the seating, the 3 rows of seats I've mentioned earlier on. Those are the important things you do get. The engine stays the same, that 1.4 litre I mentioned just now at 70 kilowatts. But what you get over here is, if you're looking for 7 seats at a budget price. In GA spec, you are looking at 194,000 Rand. In GL spec, which is the higher spec, which adds the items I mentioned a moment ago that you don't get on the other version, well, it suddenly goes up to 220,000 Rand, which is still a lot of car for your money. I've previously tested the Ertiga in GL spec, and you can go back and check out that video, and you can see, yes, definitely incredibly good value for money motoring at the budget end of the market for a 7-seater family vehicle. Includes that 3-year, 45,000 kilometer service plan as well in the price. These are all factors you need to take into account. So that's the Ertiga for you. Another item that, of course, you get if you go up to GL spec is electric windows all around, just to mention. You still get 2 airbags, you get ABS brakes. Those are items you do get either way. Let's go over now to the Honda BRV. Moving over to the Honda BRV now, I have to point out we are in the top spec elegance version. You get a trend and comfort in between, and then the elegance. So in order to compare, you could take the GL version of the Suzuki Ertiga as the comparison. I mentioned the price over there, 220,000 Rand. You come to this one, which has leather seats, and a very big difference as well, it has a 6-speed manual gearbox. So 2 very important items to point out that this car has. But now let's talk price, because I mentioned the prices of the Ertiga. Now, the elegance version of the Honda BRV is 272,000 Rand. Maybe you need to look at the comfort as a closer comparison to the GL Ertiga. That is 252,000 Rand. You drop back to the 5-speed gearbox, you lose the leather trim, etc. A few items like that between the two. So very, very similar. You can see accommodation-wise, very equal, very equivalent. There's virtually no difference between the two vehicles there again. On the Honda, you do get the VTEC engine and the engine technology. What I found is, although it's a 6-speed gearbox, it's an extremely high revving engine. So you do have to keep it pretty buzzy to keep it in its rev range and to keep it running happily in that range. So that's something you've got to accept and live with in any vehicle, but it's something to take into account when you're making that buying decision. Also, on this version, you do get a 2-year 30,000 kilometer service plan included. That is on the Comfort and the Elegance. No service plan included on the Trend version. Something else to keep in mind. So, which one do you choose? Between the Honda BRV or the Suzuki Ertiga? You know what? At the end of the day, the choice is yours. They both very, very adequately give you 7 seats in a very compact, smallish vehicle with more than adequate performance, reasonable fuel economy, and certainly very, very good pricing. The choice has to be yours. You have 2 excellent choices between these 2 vehicles. Of course, you can never leave the Toyota Avanza out of a mix like this as well, because that would be the other contender in this market. But you put your money down, you pay your money, you make your choices. I think you've got 2 fantastic contenders, both of which need very, very serious consideration if you're looking for a lower end, for want of a term, economy and budget 7-seater vehicle. For Motor Matters, I'm Alan R, and I'll see you next time.